Every state has their own complete laws, complete regulations, and there's no interstate commerce allowed. This means that we cannot ship products over state lines at all. In no way. You can't drive them, you can't ship them, you can't fly them, you can't send a bird. However, y'all doing it.
I can't do the Harry Potter owl.
You cannot use the owl. You cannot.
Okay. Fine.
So you can't do that at all. And every state has their own way that they do and govern cannabis. Some states don't allow for it at all, right?
Okay.
So like here in Georgia, they do have a medical program and they have issued licenses, but none of them are up and running. Technically, anyone that's selling weed in Atlanta or Georgia is not allowed to.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to the More Rounds podcast. I'm Kim Lewis, CEO and co-founder of CurlMix. And on this podcast, we talk about how to fund your business, whether it's through debt or cash flow or from investors or raising venture. And today, you guys, we have on the couch with us Hope, the youngest Black woman to own a dispensary in the United States of America. I am so excited to talk to her about how she funded this business. But before we get into it, we have to do a cheers.
Yes. Cheers.
I love this wine.
Yes.
Okay, so Hope, tell me about yourself. How you get into this business? And I have so many questions.
Yeah.
I don't want to just like start hitting you with all of them. So I'm going to let you do your intro first.
Okay. So my name is Hope Wiseman. I am born and raised in Prince George's County, Maryland, where I now operate Marion, Maine, which is a medical and adult use dispensary now. We opened our doors in 2018 and we were medical only then. We just went adult use in July of 2023.
Okay, great.
So that's huge. You know, it has really changed the course of my career and our business. And I'm super excited. I was a big part of the legislation that was passed that created this law and made it available to everybody. So I'm super proud of that and the advocacy that I've been able to really contribute to laws around the country and even to the federal conversation as well. So yeah, I own a dispensary, but I also operate our holding company, Wiseco. We have a majority stake in a manufacturing company in New Jersey. Yeah, you know, we're doing a lot of different things. We have some other plans coming up later down the year and into next year. The industry is just experiencing a lot of growth right now. So I'm really excited to be kind of at the ground floor of this space.
Yeah, I mean, and it said 2017 in your bio. So is that when you like first got like passed your application to like open your dispensary?
No.
Okay.
So actually my journey and my story really starts in 2014. I had just graduated from Spelman College. I had a degree in economics or have a degree in economics. I was working full-time at an investment bank in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is really when cannabis first started becoming mainstream. I was seeing it everywhere. I'm seeing it on the cover of Time magazine, Forbes, CNBC is talking about it, and they're talking about the growth trajectory of the space and kind of what was available. And me, you know, I had a career in finance, but I also really understood and was a part of the cannabis culture as well. So I understood that this growth trajectory and the demand that they said would grow in the industry really already existed, and we were just flipping from you know
regulated
unregulated to regulated,
right.
You know, legacy to legal. So you know, I knew that as a Black woman who was not independently wealthy, did not have a lot of political connections or anything of the sort, that my opportunity to get into the space was at the ground floor level. And my home state of Maryland happened to be licensing companies the next year. So I went to my mother, who is my business partner, who we work together side by side every day, which is amazing. I went to my mother and we decided to go after a dispensary license. We were successful. But after we won, we applied in 2015. We spent a year getting ready to apply from 2014 to 2015.
Wow. When you say getting ready to apply, what does that mean? Like, why do you spend a year and a half getting ready to apply?
So back in 2014, 2015, cannabis was still very taboo on the East Coast. A lot of states were going from medical to adult use. They weren't just starting out adult use. In fact, California wasn't even technically adult use back then. You still had to go get a medical card. This is back in the day when people were like walking on Venice Beach, like, hey, get a medical card. Your back hurts. Now you get one.
Yeah.
In East Coast states, it was much different. Getting a medical card, you had to have some type of illness or an issue that you had to go get qualified by a provider, which was usually a doctor.
Okay.
And they would give you a recommendation to get a medical card, not an actual prescription. So back then, it was just a much more competitive process than it is now. And the reason for that, I'll get to eventually. But back then, it was typically the only people that were winning these licenses were people who were independently wealthy, who had very heavy political connections, because people understood the trajectory of the space and the growth potential of it. Because there was still kind of that stigma associated with it, a lot of people stayed away, but the ones that were more, not as risk adverse, they took that chance. And
so what's the getting ready part though? Like, what was that? Like, are you getting trademarks or something? Like, what's the getting ready?
Getting ready is just going through, essentially it's like competing for a government grant, like for an RFP process. In fact, that's what it has turned into for many municipalities. But it was a merit-based, I tell people all the time, this was almost like taking a test, an open book test that was going to be graded on a bell curve, and there was going to be a highest score and a lowest score, no matter whether you wrote the same things or not.
And so they just have a certain percentage of people who can't pass and a certain percentage of people who they need to pass.
Most states had literally we're giving out 5 licenses.
Wow.
Yeah. And then these are the qualifications.
That's not fair.
No, it's not necessarily. But then at the same time, you don't want to have a situation where, people looked at cannabis like it was like the gold rush. People called it the green rush, right? So everybody was like trying to get in and figure out their place. So if they had just let it be a free-for-all, I mean, it really would have been a free-for-all.
I guess it'd be like daycares. Like we have that many dispensaries. Well, okay, I understand.
And they even say in impoverished areas and low-income areas, there's been a concentration of liquor stores and tobacco shops, and they didn't want to see the same thing happen with the cannabis industry.
Okay, that's one argument. All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were getting ready to apply 2015, right?
2015.
And then you actually applied in 2017. When do you get the license?
Well, I actually applied at the end of 2015. So it was December or November 2015. They told us it would be 3 months. This is like in statute. It's in the law. 3 months, and then they have to award licenses. It took a year.
Wow. So
the end of 2016, we were awarded the license. At that point, it's a conditional license at that point. We had to kind of go through all the qualifications, getting our business up and running, ready to be operational, and then they come do a last inspection, and then you get open. For us, it was real estate issues that kind of held us back. It took us 2 years from almost 2 years, a year and 8 months or so from the time we were awarded our license at the end of 2015. Or end of 2016, to open in September 2018.
Wow.
Going through just, zoning, finding a property first that was zoned properly. That's a whole nother thing in itself. And then going through the whole contractor build out process in an industry where people are putting that extra green tax on top of you. So everything, as soon as they hear what you do, everything costs 5 times more.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe
okay.
not 5, but
this is so interesting to me because talk about high barrier to entry, right?
Yeah.
Like this is taking you, it's not like I'm gonna start selling oil out of my kitchen and I can just start selling like a growth oil tomorrow. Like, no, this is taking you 3-4 years before you actually get to make $1. Yeah. So how much money are you spending on this application? Is it free?
No, it's not free. No. So, but the funny part is the actual application itself, like what you pay to the state or to the city as you apply, that may not be much. It may be, sometimes they simplify or give preference to certain groups. So you might only have to pay $500 to apply, right? Okay. Or up to, $5,000. I've seen $10,000 ones. I've even seen some be refundable if you don't win. So that's not really where the money get spent when you're applying for a license.
Okay.
The money is actually spent on all the things you have to do to put your application packet together. So think about, if you're having to get together a business plan, an operational plan, and all of these things, and you've never run a cannabis business before. Let's say you've never even run anything adjacent, any type of retail business if you're going after a dispensary. But let's say you want to be a cultivator or a manufacturer. Do you have any experience in any adjacent industry? Maybe for cultivation, maybe you've never grown cannabis, but maybe you've grown tomatoes or lettuce.
Where are you buying the products that you're reselling? Like, how do you even find that? It's not like you have like an Alibaba where you can go and say, I'm going to buy all these gummies. I'm going to buy all these like chocolates that have CBD, 1 part, 2 part THC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are you just locally making these connections? Are the conferences you're going to? Like, how are you putting a business plan together for an industry that is so new?
This industry, it's not only new, it's highly sophisticated and highly regulated. So something that I tell people when they first want to get into the space is you have to understand that cannabis is federally illegal, right? So there's no federal of governing of this plant except for they do tax us.
And walk us through. I mean, I know you're not. I know you're not like the police or anything like that, or you're not like a judge or a lawyer, but like walk us through the levels of regulation. So you have like there's a state, there's federal. Like walk us through. Yeah. Even the lowest level, wasn't it municipalities? I think it is.
There's like a local level, and then some states even come up with their own. Most have their own like kind of cannabis governing board, cannabis commission administration, or something like that. So, of course, we start up here at the federal level, which at the end of the day supersedes everything. Okay. But the government has, over the years, we've had different attorney generals and presidents, and they all feel differently about cannabis. And they have taken away things that have protected our industry, and some have introduced things back. But kind of where it is right now is it's very clear that cannabis will become legal at some point. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when and how. And a lot of people have a lot of different, things on that.
Yeah, federal?
Federal, then state.
Okay.
So this is where most of all of the actual authority lies within the cannabis industry. Every state has their own complete laws, complete regulations, and there's no interstate commerce allowed. This means that we cannot ship products over state lines at all. In no way. You can't drive them, you can't ship them, you can't fly them, you can't send a bird. However y'all doing it.
I can't use the Harry Potter owl?
You cannot use the owl. You cannot.
Okay.
So you can't do that at all. And every state has their own way that they do and govern cannabis. Some states don't allow for it at all, right? Okay. So like here in Georgia, they do have a medical program and they have issued licenses, but none of them are up and running. Technically, anyone that's selling weed in Atlanta or Georgia is not allowed to.
I mean,
technically, if we go there.
Okay.
And then, yes, there's typically the state puts some type of cannabis commission, administration, governing board there that focuses on issuing licenses, maintaining compliance, sending out audits, things like that.
Gotcha.
Collecting data, that type of stuff. And then, of course, there's the local. Some states give the local municipalities more authority than others.
And a municipality is really just like a town, right? A
town, a city, a county. It kind of depends. Every state has their own way that they kind of look at municipalities. Every state gives different every state has a different local way that they deal with it. And I think what is being noticed now, as every state is learning from the next, Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think what a lot of people are noticing is that when you give local municipalities too much control, it entices corruption.
I was going to say corruption, boy, sliding them $10,000, $20,000 checks over there.
Because a lot of cities don't have much money. So now, and then, you even hear about Colorado had a surplus from their cannabis tax revenue.
How much does it take to really buy a politician? What you think? If you had to estimate a number?
It depends on the level. Depends on also what they want or need and how much you have. Because sometimes it's not money that they need, that they want. It's something that you have access to. So a lot of times it's like an exchange of power.
It's power, yeah.
And that can happen very easily in this industry, especially because of the type of money that is, that really could be made.
Yeah.
We have a lot of barriers right now.
$50,000 if I'm gonna make $5 million.
$50,000 is nothing to a lot of these cannabis companies. It's like, here, that's all you want.
And I remember I was talking to my husband about this, and he was like, Kim, it don't take much to buy a politician. I was like, what? No. I was like, we don't do that here at CurlMix or at the More Ounce podcast, but no. They're not that expensive if you need to lobby for a law. But So about funding this application. So it's not much to actually submit the application, but you were saying there are a lot of things that you have to do alongside the application. How much would you estimate that you had to spend there?
So we probably spent, and I talk about this a lot, we probably spent close to $200,000 to $250,000 in our preparation to turn in our application.
Oh my God.
This is all
preparation
this is at-risk capital. Nobody was giving us that money back if we lost.
So this is just out of pocket, that things that you saved as an investment banker, maybe family, friends.
So I was, how old? I just graduated from school. I just started working in investment banking. And at my age, honestly, that was probably like one of the highest level jobs I could possibly get. I remember I got a $20,000 starting bonus, and I just thought I was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how old were you?
I was, like 22.
Girl, look, that's so much my wedding cost. I thought
I was like doing it, And then when we started all this,
that's doing it.
Yes, I was. But in perspective to what I was about to do, I say all the time that I am so blessed because my mother and Dr. Bryant, who's our third co-founder, three of us started everything. He is an oral surgeon. My mom's a general dentist. They practice right next door to each other. Literally my entire life. My mom started her practice the year I was born. So they're the ones that pretty much, with my $20,000 injection, because I did donate all I had to the cause in the beginning.
Look at you. Come on. Thank you.
That's all I had. But they really lifted me up and put me on their shoulders, and they believed in my vision enough to literally throw their weight behind me. Without them, there would be no Wise Co. There would be no Mary and Main.
Wow. Okay. So Mary and Main. So $250,000. Can you give me a quick synopsis of the things that probably cost $50K, $20K, $100K? What is it? What's making up that $200,000?
So we were spending money during the application process, trying to learn. So this is also 2014. There was literally no blueprint. And when I was doing any research on, how to get into the industry, people didn't know because literally this was state's first run at even creating the industry in that state.
My friends have a joke. It's if you're the first one going through the door, you get shot.
Yeah.
The cops raid a house, you're the first one to the door, you're going to be in, you gotta have that vest on. And so sometimes we end up spending money on things that maybe if you're coming in now in the industry, you want some money on this thing. But because I did it first, then I had
to make those mistakes.
Exactly.
So you don't have to, there's something about being a trailblazer. When you're a trailblazer, you're literally going through the woods, sight unseen. You don't know what's on the other side is dark, and you're just literally cutting it down. And then everyone else can come behind you, and some people may cut down more trees and make the way even bigger. But at the end of the day, you were the first one to go that way.
Yeah. And
I didn't even realize I was doing that at the time. So
you're just why is it so hard?
Yeah. Why can't anyone help me? And I'm going to conferences and doing things. So that was the first chunk of money. We were literally just traveling we were going to Denver, we were going to Nevada, we were going all these different places on the West Coast that we were seeing were having cannabis networking events. Shout out to M for MM. That was medical
wait, what is that?
M for MM.
Okay.
Medical cannabis or I need to remember this.
Oh, it's okay. We got it. M for MM. Okay.
Yes. So shout out to M for MM. They were the ones that literally introduced me to almost all of the first Black people that I met in the space.
Oh, wow.
And from there, then people started kind of holding my hand and telling me, oh, you need to go talk to her. Oh, you need to go talk to her. You need to go talk to her. But before that, nobody was kind of showing us the way. But my mother and I literally started traveling around the country and talking to anyone that would. Learning as much as we could. We realized quickly that we didn't have the technical skills to apply for those parts of the application process because at this time, the application was extremely extensive. When it was finished, ours was probably close to 1,000 pages.
1,000 pages? Mm-hmm. First of all, for me to raise money in equity crowdfunding is only 100 pages.
Right.
So I guess you're doing ingestibles, right? So it's a little different.
Yeah.
That should be more regulated. But 1,000, what is in 1,000 pages for a medical marijuana application?
You know, it's stuff like what's going to be your quality assurance plan? What's going to be your customer education plan? What's going to be your diversity plan? What's your workforce utilization plan?
Oh my God.
What is going to be, and then now we're getting over, you know, let's say this is for dispensary, right? Let's go to cultivation or manufacturing. Now we're getting into manufacturing SOPs and different quality assurance standards and all of these different things. It's like you're going after, you know, an RFP and trying to get a GMP certification and trying to get...
and GMP is good manufacturing practices.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the GMP, sorry, yep.
Like you're trying to do all of those things in one. And then it's with an agency that is typically, especially back then, we're talking about 2014, 2015. These are new government agencies that have never graded anything like this before. So it's like a hot mess. They're looking at all this. They're like, what is this shit? You know, I'm sorry. You know, but like, what is this?
We don't judge.
You know, I'm like, what is there? They don't even barely know.
The number one question I get all the time is, Kim, is CurlMix available in stores? We have been saying no to every retailer for the last 7 years that I've been in business. And we are finally on store shelves, you guys. We are available in Ulta. And I really need you guys to show up and buy us out so that we can blow up in the store and do well. Thank you so much for watching our podcast. And please make sure you go buy CurlMix, now available in Ulta. Yo, you know what's facts? I have a friend who runs an agency that grades these applications.
Yeah.
And, you know, he does have his pharmacology degree, you know, his PhD. But it's new for him too. You know what I mean? As educated as he might be, it's new for him too. And I'm like, that's wild.
Yeah.
So they're trying to regulate something that they have no basis really for even how to regulate.
No, not really. You know, they do their best to bring in subject matter experts. But it's funny because the industry is so new, right?
Yeah.
And I got in it pretty early. So I'm traveling all around, I'm meeting people, but like, you know, now fast forward to 2023, like I'm kind of like an OG in the space a little bit. So it's funny, a lot of my friends are the ones like grading these applications. And it's not funny too, because a lot of times they have to, you know, excuse themselves when they know people. And there's always that like kind of like blind application thing. But something else that interesting that's happened over the years is they've realized it's inequitable how difficult the application process was. And like you said, the barriers to entry just made it almost impossible to see a person of color really get into the space.
Yeah.
So if you
need $250,000, that's pretty impossible. Like,
you know, you're paying for application writers, and then, you know, go back to 2014 when it's still early. There are very few people with that level of expertise. So, you know, they're upcharging, rightfully so. But also there were a lot of jokers in the space back then because you didn't know who was big or good really from someone else that just kind of looked the part. So a lot of people were getting taken advantage of by application writers and consultants. Not all of them though, but.
So this sounds like an industry that I need money before I decide I want to join. You can't just be like, I'm gonna hustle my way through and like, you know, be profitable and da. Like, no, you're gonna go in the hole first and then you're gonna climb out.
You know, I tell people this industry is huge. You know, all the projections, the 25 billion by 2025 and all that is real. But there's different pockets of the industry, right? And then there's the plant touching side, which I'm on. I have a license, a state licensed company, and that's what I'm building, a legal THC-based business. But there is a whole nother side of this industry from an ancillary side. What does
ancillary mean?
So ancillary, essentially, we talked about the gold rush earlier, in the green rush. These are the picks and the shovel businesses. So these are all the businesses that assist the plant touching businesses.
Yeah.
You know?
So I know ancillary mean like extra. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what you meant. Gotcha. Like,
but essentially, just, you know, if you're a marketing business that specifically focuses on cannabis, or if you sell the packaging that we use, if you sell even cleaning supplies, but you specifically focus on cannabis groups and
application process,
or the application, you're a consultant for that, you know, any of the things where you don't actually need a license to do it. So that's a huge part of the industry. And then there's the whole CBD side. So the 2018, I believe, federal farm bill made it so we put a line in the sand on what is hemp and what is cannabis, although it's the same plant.
Girl, you know, I got some hemp oil in one of my flaxseed gels. And I promise you, the number of times that Amazon takes it down, I'm like, look, this ain't getting nobody high. Like, it is just for your hair.
It's, you know, the advertising restrictions in cannabis are very, very serious. You know, TikTok you can't do anything cannabis related. You can't even have something that looks like a joint on TikTok. They will take it down.
Oh, wow.
Instagram is, I mean, they'll take, my Marion main account was gone for like 6 months. I had to like argue that down to get it back.
Oh my gosh.
And we don't sell cannabis. So you have to really go out of your way to make sure you're compliant on these social media platforms. And it just goes to show that there's still a long way to go to eradicate the stigma. And that's been a focus of mine in my career for sure.
So was business good when you were just a medical dispensary, or is it the same now that you are an adult dispensary, or is it like it's really no difference? It was just more of like a marketing thing. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting watching a state go from medical to adult use, and we've seen it happen in a bunch of states. So as Maryland was preparing for that transition, everyone had a lot of predictions on what was going to happen using data from other states.
Yeah.
And we kind of missed the mark a little bit of what other people thought we were going to do, but I actually think we're right on time. So yeah, you know, as it became medical, Maryland had about 160,000 patients, and that's pretty much where it plateaued. It stayed around that number.
Okay.
For the entire, it was about 7 years of a medical program before it went adult use, or what some people know as recreational. Going adult use, people thought it was going to be like 4 to 5 times immediately. And the first month we did about, I think the actual number is 87 million in Maryland, month 1.
Oh, wow.
Where in like Missouri, which is a state with a similar demographic, similar population, they did closer to 100 million. Month 1. I know Illinois last month just did 131 million. And they have a much bigger population. It's a denser state too.
So I've been buying stuff in Illinois for a while now.
Yeah.
It wasn't legal?
Illinois, they just did 131 in their legal market. It's been legal.
Okay.
Illinois went adult use in 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
The first adult use dispensary.
Wait a minute, because
but they've been medical even longer than that.
Okay,
Illinois
gotcha.
was one of the first like competitive adult or medical states. And Illinois is actually where a lot of the MSOs, that's what we call like the bigger companies that are in a lot of different states.
What does MSO stand for?
Multi-state operator.
Gotcha.
So,
people who've gotten licensed in multiple
states.
Which means they got buku money. Because
You spent a lot of money getting those up and running and winning the application processes, yes.
Do you recommend, who should go after having a dispensary and who should not?
I think that if you have the ability to raise upwards of $1 million, you can go after a dispensary.
It doesn't matter my technical expertise or background?
I think that technical expertise and background in the cannabis industry, when it comes to opening a retail dispensary, is not as important as having the ability to organize and project manage.
What kind of multiples are typically on cannabis companies? Is it just like CPG, where it could be anywhere from 3 to 7x, 3x on the low end based on EBITDA, or look up EBITDA, or 7x if you're like the best brand in the market?
So because our industry is so new and the laws are so up and down, the risk levels are so crazy, I don't know where it's going to actually, like, what our industry standards are going to be. Yeah. I can tell you where it's been though. Previously, the past few years, it's been all about revenue multiples, top line.
Yeah.
And people are getting 2 times. At one point, it was like there were the golden days for a little period of time where people were getting 3 times. Everybody was going public that could they were doing a stock split and all this stuff. And now it's turning more into like typical business where people are looking at your EBITDA and they are really trying to see if you can run a profitable business, if you know what you're doing. And multiples are closer to like 6 times EBITDA right now.
Okay.
In markets that still have huge catalysts, like in Maryland that just went from medical to adult use, people love to buy that.
I heard people can buy licenses, right?
Yes, you can buy a license.
Is that legal?
It is legal to buy a license. A lot of times they have ownership restrictions around potentially like how long you have to own it, especially if the license was won under certain pretenses, right? Mm-hmm. So it's big now in cannabis to focus on social equity. because we all know that cannabis has a kind of dark history.
Of course, Black folks been locked up for just smoking weed for centuries, and now we can just do it for free, and
we don't have the money to get in.
Right.
You know, they made it too difficult.
Exactly.
So that's being acknowledged by most states at this point. Back when I was first coming through, that was not a thing. You know, at least not something that they focused on or they felt like it was necessary to build into the application process. So I won my license without social equity and all of that. Fast forward to now, you know, there have been a lot of people like me that have pretty much said, like, look, this isn't fair. And there are inequities in this space, just like there are everywhere. Yeah. And the systemic issues that block us from getting loans and doing all these things in other spaces are, you know, multiplied times 20 in this space. And it should be honestly the opposite way, because so many Black families have been disenfranchised by the over-policing of this plant.
Of course.
You know, so now we deserve the opportunities to be in the business if we want to. And if we don't want to, we deserve for the revenue that's being made from it to go back into our communities to help rebuild what was taken. So, you know, now going into the space, a lot of the application processes have been made a little bit easier.
Okay.
And they've made it so it's almost like a conditional space. So it's like if you meet certain qualifications, then you can get the license, and then you can go out and raise the money and do all the things because you have more of a ticket in hand rather than like, hey, I have this dream and I'm going to try, you know, like no investor's giving you $1 for a dream, you know?
Right.
So now it's a little easier. And there are ways for people to get into the space, but the hardest part really is maintaining that. And with those ownership restrictions, at the end of the day, a lot of people have to go out and raise money and they end up losing their ownership and big chunks of it, right? But I tell people all the time, you might not have had the opportunity at all.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's better for your first venture to go into a partnership, even when you don't have the control and you don't have the say-so.
Exactly.
You might learn things and be able to take the money you've made from the first partnership and go and build. Because I always looked at Marion, Maine as the beginning of my wealth building journey.
Exactly.
I didn't look at it like Marion, Maine is going to be the thing that transcends generations and pays, you know, Wiseman's 50, 1,000 years from now are going to remember, this is the beginning of our journey.
Not you got the poet voice. Like, this is not going to be the biggest thing I ever do, right?
No.
Like, so then if I'm raising $1 million from my cannabis startup, I'm looking maybe for a 2x, 3x in evaluation.
Yes.
So someone's going to buy half the company out front, out the gate. And it's because of the licensing and you just need so much money up front.
I'd say this, what valuations for startup cannabis businesses are even more tricky. They are more so based on like the market dynamics, especially in a limited license state, right? So a state like I'm gonna go with Maryland because it's the state I know the most. Maryland right now has 100 dispensaries. They initially licensed 25 growers, 25 processors. There's a little bit more now that got licensed through like lawsuits and other things, right?
Yeah.
Those licenses are going to be really valuable. So let's say they issued a new one and now it's 101 dispensary licenses. Your license really is your startup value, your pre-money value is going to be more than $1 million. Because at the end of the day, like, you're going to be making at least the bottom of the market dynamics because you're one of very few. So people do look at limited licenses like they have some type of paper value. Like people buy paper for millions of dollars in this industry.
I have one last question. Or maybe not the last one, but is it harder to get a license to be a dispensary than it is to sell product with THC and CBD in it? Which one is harder?
So, okay, I'm guessing you're asking if it's harder to be like a cultivator, a processor. In some states, they have distributor licenses.
And a processor is somebody who's extracting the THC.
So they're extracting the THC and they're putting it in finished goods. A lot of times, like, let's say you were to get into the cannabis industry, I could see you wanting to be a manufacturer and then make finished goods, packaged CPG goods that you then sell to the dispensary. Yeah. That's in line with pretty much what you already do.
Right.
And then you buy raw biomass from a cultivator. But there's also distributor licenses in some states. Some states don't have distributors. So the cultivator or processor distributes their own product straight to the dispensary.
Okay.
But typically there's always at least those 3 components of the space. And that's how it's usually.
So which one's harder? Cultivator, processor, or distributor?
They all have their own points to them, and they all have their own things that kind of call for a certain level of expertise. I'd say that cultivation is probably the most expensive, especially if you're doing an indoor cultivation with the lights that are necessary, the HVAC that's necessary. I mean, you're talking millions of dollars.
Because you cannot have your employees getting contact highs while they're at work.
I mean, not only that, just like literally like growing the plant indoors takes so much with like environmental controls, right? You have to control the heat and air at all times, the light at all times, because essentially you're mimicking, the sun.
Yeah.
So it's just really expensive.
Gotcha.
A lot of people try and grow outdoors where it's appropriate, but now at a commercial level, and you're trying to grow quality, you're trying to grow the same things over and over. You're trying to get the highest level THC. To get that ROI, a lot of times people have to grow indoors, or they're growing in a greenhouse setting, and just to control those environmental controls, it's crazy. So yeah, I'd say it's typically the most expensive.
So Faith, I know this podcast is about funding, and we did talk about the money piece, but you have just literally laid it out for everybody about going to get their application and applying for a dispensary. But is there any an unpopular opinion that you have about this space?
Yeah.
Oh, you knew it. She didn't. You were like, yeah, I got it. Go ahead.
I mean, I'd say a lot of people look at the cannabis industry immediately. I called it the gold rush before and the green rush, that this is a space where you're going to come in and make millions of dollars. And the truth is you do have the potential to make millions of dollars. But there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of regulation. And that doesn't mean you're going to actually pocket millions of dollars. It just means that, you're creating a lot of cash flow and you're stimulating the economy a lot.
She said you're providing jobs.
You're providing some jobs, and you are paying some people's bills, okay?
Okay.
And you are paying the IRS.
Everybody has a role.
So this is just, I tell people now that this is an industry that if you get in at this point, you're really playing the long game, and you have to be able to survive. And a lot of people have not been able to survive. And I'd say that our resilience has come from being able to take punches, roll with them, also being lean, being extremely lean. And it's a lesson that I really attribute to my mother, who always, people joke, and sometimes she's probably gonna be so pissed I say this, but people call her the money police, because my mom does not play. We have millions of dollars flowing through our accounts, and my mom will be like, what's this $30 that was spent here? She does not play. She really looks through everything. And I just think that in this industry, if you're not being that level of attention to where your money is going, how it's being spent, it can really eat you up. I mean, you're paying sales and use tax, you're paying just crazy regular business taxes because we can't deduct business expenses.
Wait a minute, y'all don't get write-offs?
We do not not typical and ordinary.
Oh, tell me an ordinary write-off that you don't get in the cannabis industry.
Payroll.
What you mean?
Yeah, salaries, all of them. I can't write them off. There are some exceptions to this, and if you're a cannabis attorney or any attorney, you might know about 471C.
So do you always end up owing a bill to the IRS regardless at the end of the year?
Oh yeah, I'm always gonna owe. It's more of a question of how much. Cannabis.
Oh yeah. When you lose money that year, it doesn't matter. You still end up owing?
You're still owing.
So
I mean, yes, you still owe. Cannabis companies, this is why most can't survive, and they're spending loads of money just to continue to be operational.
Oh my gosh, Faith.
So this is, yeah.
I called you Faith.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, I'm so flabbergasted. I know who I'm talking to, but I just was like, wait, if you lose money, you still owe the government.
You still owe. You still owe. So at your top line, especially if you're a retail dispensary.
You messing me up right now. Like, you messing me up.
Yeah. You know, so I tell people all the time.
You messing me up. I was like, no,
this is not an industry where, like, you know, I don't really do this. Like I said, I didn't get into this industry because, I thought I was going to be able to make millions and millions of dollars off of this first venture. One, I saw an opportunity to get into a space that was new, emerging, be at the ground floor level, affect change, be a part of the actual legalization of it. And I knew that this is going to pay off long term.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be hard, but I don't think I really understood, you know, especially 280E, what we're talking about now, the taxes, how difficult it would be to turn this business into a profitable business. But essentially, for a retail cannabis business, for every dollar you make, you keep about 10 to 15 cents. A regular business is keeping like 30 to 40 cents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you just gave us all the game on applying for your cannabis license. I hope the people learned. I know that they learned so much. I have learned so much. There's so much I didn't know. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to leave the people with?
You know, I'll say that if you're interested in this space, there's still so much opportunity. I know I kind of went through all of the difficulties and how much money to be spent, but at the end of the day, this industry is evolving and growing, and there's so much more room for creativity. That's what I'm personally focused on. So I definitely encourage people to learn as much as they can, get involved in creating and shaping the laws that govern our space, because this industry has a bright future and you should be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Hope, you guys. And thank you so much for watching the More Rounds podcast. We'll see you guys in the next episode.